So for today, we're doing a little bit of review for the final, and we have a packet, which is basically called the review for the final. It's a big set of problems, and we're going to be kind of working through this slowly, like a page a day kind of thing. We have plenty of days. So for today, the first half of the hour, actually even more than that, we spent just looking over the tests that kids took on Friday. And then today we'll talk just for a few minutes about the first couple things that we have to know from that review packet. So for question number 1, I believe it's one where you have a whole bunch of choices. Imagine a problem where you had like 6 shirts, 5 pairs of pants, and 3 kinds of shoes. All you got to do,
90 possibilities.
you multiply them all together. 5 times 6 is 30, and 30 times 3 is 90. You just multiply them all. Okay, so if you have a ton of choices, it's usually in this level of class, you're just multiplying your choices together, and that's your answer. Okay, so that's a pretty easy one. So that was the first question off the review packet. Would you read me Vivian number 2? Venn diagram, that's like one of these things. Okay, keep going.
People were asked the question, do you like the Minnesota Vikings and the Minnesota Twins or both?
Excellent, you're doing a good job, just keep going.
And then 0.15, 0.4.
0.15 over here. And was that the Vikings one, or?
Yeah.
And what's the other thing?
0.4 is the middle.
Okay.
And 0.25.
And what's above this? It's Vikings versus
Twins.
Twins. Okay. Does it give the end number?
Yeah, 0.2.
0.2. If it didn't, you'd still be able to figure it out because these have to add up to 100%. All right. So just a quick reminder of what kind of things we could ask you about here. If I said Vikings only, that would be this one. If I just said Vikings, that would be both of these. Because the kids in the middle, they liked Vikings. So you have to put them with the other one. And that would be 0.55. If they ask you for and or, those are the two confusing ones. Vikings and Twins, Vikings or Twins. I always tell kids that or is a small word that means a big answer. This kind is a big answer. If it's Vikings or Twins, it's all 3 of these things. And if it's and, it's only the middle one. This kind is a small answer. So it's just the 0.4. So there's a quick reminder of how you do that kind. So the way I'd like to structure class here is you've got a review packet, you've got some time, you can ask me questions. Okay, so we'll have some work time till the end of the hour. And you can just walk up, if you get stuck on one of these, you can walk up. I have posted the answers for the first couple pages. So we got done earlier than a lot of classes did. There's a lot of classes that aren't testing on that stats unit until tomorrow. So they're still finishing that up. We're already reviewing. So we don't have to cover as much each day. We can have pretty lazy, easy days. Okay, so today, if you would just get literally the first page of this review packet done. If you can just get that done, that'd be good enough. Okay? Just get the first page of the review packet done. You can ask me some questions, and then tomorrow, when you show up, you could have questions like, I didn't really get number 3, but I do want you to look at the key before me. I put the key there for a reason. I want you to look at it. And if you still don't understand it, you can ask me about it. All right. Next question I get a lot is, what if I don't do the packet? Well, then you lose homework points and you're not well prepared for the final. Like doing the packet would be, skipping the packet would be really dumb. You got a whole week to complete it. Name a homework assignment where I give you a week to get it done. Like never. So I strongly recommend to do the packet that I've given you here for a review for the final because it is part of your homework and it helps you get ready for the final test. And some people ask about the final, like how does it count? It counts like a regular test, but for most kids that means it's about 10% of your grade. So like that's a fair amount. So it can swing your grade. I will tell you what happens for most people. For most people, the final, if you don't study hard for it, brings you down a little bit. Whatever your grade is in my class, right this second, If you look, it will probably bring your grade down a little bit. Maybe not enough to go from an A to an A minus, but maybe it is enough to do that. It's really rare for the final to tank anybody's grade 2 notches, to go from like an A minus past the B plus to a regular B. It's really rare to go that far, but it's fairly common for the final to bring you down 1 notch to go from an A minus to a B plus. All you have to do to keep that from happening is study for the next few days in class. We have an hour every day for like 5 days. If you will actually take that time to ask me questions and study, your final will go fine. You'll get a good grade. But this is a really dangerous time for a lot of kids because you got the B plus, and you could move up to an A minus, and some of you are instead going to go down to a regular B because you're going to slack for 1 week. That's what's going to happen to some people's grades. Honestly, most people, as long as they try a decent amount, keep the same grade as they have. Very rare for somebody to kick so much butt on the final that they move up. That does happen sometimes. But I'm going to say 80% of you are going to be here. And actually, I'm going to say 75 or 70% of people are going to stay at the same grade because you'll try hard enough and you'll keep the same grade. A good 25% of you are going to move down a notch from a B plus to a B because it's so hard to concentrate this time of year. And then there'll be 5% of you will actually move all the way up to a higher grade just because of the final. It can happen if you work hard at it. So it all depends on how motivated you are at this moment. Okay, so this is that moment where your grade is on the line. Trying hard will make a difference for this next 1 week. All right, so if you try hard enough, most of you guys will just keep your same grade you have. If you don't, you'll drop a notch. If you kick some butt, you might even move up a notch. All right, so tomorrow I'll have more of an organized review day where I talk over a lot of topics that you're supposed to know. And then Thursday, we'll take one last first 20 test. A lot of you guys had a score that was not awesome and therefore is lowering your grade in my class right now. It's in the grade book. If you look up first 20, it's there. And a lot of you guys did not have an awesome score. This is your chance to retake it in class. You won't have to come in the morning to retake it. You can just retake it on Thursday in this class. I will practice with you for it a little bit each day. So this is that moment where I'm going to practice for the first 20 and just cover a couple topics. So on your scratch paper, set aside your review packet right now. Go off of that and find a blank notability doc that I had you start the hour with, we put a smiley face on it. So let's just practice for the first 20 a little bit so that by Wednesday, that goes well too. All right, do you remember factoring? Can you factor that? Just try to factor that once. Just forcing your brain to go back and review that kind of thing makes it stick so much longer. Just this one practice problem here might be enough to get some of you to completely remember factoring all summer. Whereas if we didn't touch this one last time and you go for like 4 months without looking at it, you might have forgotten how to factor. I know some of you honestly forgot how to factor right now, but start with the X and the X. And my second step is always to figure out if you use pluses or minuses here or one of each. That's usually the case. Usually it's one of each. And then the last thing is to figure out what number goes here that multiplies to this. All right, compare with the kid next to you and see if they got the same thing as you, or if you're struggling, ask them for some help. I'm going to pause for a second while you practice factoring. Okay, did you notice that there was a plus and a minus? That means you need a plus and a minus. Okay. Also, because if you want a negative answer here, you'll have to have a positive number and a negative number to make a -4. And then these two numbers multiply to 4. There's only 2 choices. It's either a 2 and a 2 or it's a 1 and a 4. What do you think it is? It's a 1 and a 4. And then you got to be careful on the 1 and the 4. How do you know that this is right or not right? You check it. You go outside, -4x, inside, 1x, and and you put them together and you get negative 3x, but that's the opposite of what you wanted. If you get the opposite of what you wanted, you change to the opposite signs. That becomes positive, this becomes negative, and there's your final answer. Who had x minus 1 and x plus 4? Good. That, if I could pick only one thing for you to be good at, it's factoring. So if you just sucked at that, you need to practice that. We need to get that down. Because next year, as you move on to either function stats and trig or pre-calc, especially in pre-calc, they have tons of factoring. You've got to be good at factoring. All right, here's another topic. Let's see if you remember this. X minus 3 squared. It's kind of a trap because a lot of kids are like, oh, it's easy. Got the answer, boom, done. And then they're wrong. Nora, could you tilt up your name tag? I do know you, but if you tilt the name tag up, it can be like everybody else, and I can read it better. But can you tell me, what do you think, here, this is even more complicated. What do you think is the common trap answer that's got part of the answer, but not the whole answer? People put this and they get it wrong. And then they get x squared and 9. And that's part of the answer. Do you know what the actual answer is? I'm going to show you. It's x minus 3 times x minus 3, because that's what squared means. So it's really common to miss this middle two things, the outside and the inside. And that makes negative 3x and another negative 3x, which makes negative 6x. How many of you actually had the negative 6x? All right, only a few of you. Do you get how that's actually pretty easy? It's just multiplying the thing out, you know? But it's an easy place to make a dumb mistake. That's one of those first 20 skills. All right, next one. You get, if I had this, everybody would be able to tell me the slope and the y-intercept. The slope is 6 and the y-intercept is 5. Okay, but what if I put a 2 here? Then a lot of people are like, I don't know. But it's pretty easy. You just got to do something. What's the slope going to be now? Amir, what do I do to both sides? You're not Amir, but it is divided by 2. Good. Okay. And then, Amir, what is the slope?
The slope?
Yep.
3.
Yep. That is equal to 3, so he's right to say 3. Okay. You could say 6 rise and 2 run, but that simplifies down to 3 over 1. So 3 is the slope. And the y-intercept is that. 5 over 2 is the same as 5 divided by 2, which is 2.5, is the y-intercept. All right, so what do? We had to divide it by that number to get it out of there. All right. Let's just do a little more review for this. Do you remember this one? 2/3 divided by 4/5. Not fractions. It is probably the most hated topic in all of math is fractions. But when you learned it, you were in like 4th grade and you weren't nearly as smart as you are now. You know, 9th grade or 10th grade you is way the heck smarter than 4th grade you. So just because you were bad at fractions when you were younger, some of you can get them now. They're not that hard. Divided by 4/5, you should have changed it to times 5/4. And the answer would have been 10 over 12, which does reduce. But how many of you got it that far? Cool. It's just flip and multiply. This one gets flipped and multiplied. And if I had to, my favorite saying is if you can factor it, you should. I'm going to change it to 5 times 2 and 6 times 2. Why is that smart? Because those cancel. And it's 5/6. Yes?
Is the top 20 going to be on paper or on iPads?
Technically called the first 20 for you guys. Eventually, when you get to pre-calc, it'll be called the top 20. But because it'll be a little harder than these. But it'll be on paper. It'll be something you can do on paper. And that's coming on Thursday of this week. Problems just like this. All right, next one. You know what? I think that's enough for today. So, if you wanted to be doing a practice one, this is at algebra. You don't have to. But if you know that you're bad at those and you want to get better, Algebra Ninja. and you look for first 20. It's under the ACT tab. It's algebraninja.com, first 20. That's where you could do some practice if you wanted to, so that Thursday's little quiz, which is going in the grade, does count, actually raises kids' grades more than people understand. It's like its own category. So there's not many points in that category, which means basically it's almost like it's more important than a summative. Serious. So this first 20 would be something to take very seriously, so that goes well, raises your grade. All right, and that's all I have for you for today.